Well, thanks so much, Tom. And I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, and I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I also want to acknowledge all my ministerial colleagues who are here today and thank them for being here to provide support, but most importantly as well, thank you for the support and for being part of our team over the last 3 years. On the Wednesday before the last election, I stood at this very podium and I said it was my ambition to lead a government that honours the values of the Australian people, that repays hard work, that nourishes aspiration and creates opportunity. A government driven by strong and clear principles, no one held back and no one left behind. Through everything the world has thrown at Australia over the last 3 years, for all the challenges our nation has faced, our government has held true to those enduring Australian values of fairness, aspiration and opportunity. We have worked each and every day to repay the trust that the Australian people placed in us, to turn promises into progress, to secure Australia's place in our region, restore our standing in the world and strengthen our economy and society here at home, to deliver on our commitments and build beyond them, strengthening Medicare, backing fair wages and good jobs and investing in education and skills, so that in a changing global economy, no Australian is held back, and delivering real, practical and ongoing help with the cost of living, so that in times of global uncertainty, no Australian is left behind. Taking action to help people here and now while building for the long term. It has been less than 3 years since Australians voted out the Morrison government. My colleagues and I know there is much more work to do. That is what drives us. We know the power and the value of a stable, reforming, majority Labor government, the opportunities it creates, the difference it makes to people's lives. And we know the risk and the cost of a reckless and wasteful Liberal and National government. We're still cleaning up 10 years of their mess. As I said at the time, 3 years ago, right here, it was always going to take us more than 3 years to clear away the chaos and dysfunction that the Liberals left behind. But since May 2022, through these challenging times, we have laid strong foundations. On the 3rd of May, I am asking Australians to vote Labor so we can keep building for our future, so we can manage the global uncertainty facing us in the interests of our nation, so we can put the Liberals' wasted decade behind us once and for all, and so we can seize the opportunities ahead of us and share them with all Australians. That is the optimism, the ambition and the determination at the heart of our plan for building Australia's future. A plan for every Australian in every part of our country. That's why I've been campaigning to strengthen Medicare everywhere. The biggest ever investment in bulk billing, so more GPs can bulk bill every patient every time, bringing the cost of PBS medicines down to just $25 a script, the lowest price it's been since 2004, and freezing it at just $7.70 for concession card holders for the rest of the decade, opening another 50 new Medicare urgent care clinics, adding to the network of 87 that we've already opened in regions and suburbs right around Australia. This will mean by the middle of next year, 4 out of every 5 Australians will live within just 20 minutes of a clinic. And in every clinic, every Australian will only need just this, their Medicare card. All they will need. 1.3 million Australians have already benefited from an urgent care clinic with just this. And as well, we'll add to it with a new 24/7 telehealth service. 1800 Medicare, free, trusted health advice just a phone call away, no matter where you live. Helping more Australians see a doctor for free takes pressure off our hospitals and our health system. And of course, investing in Medicare delivers on what has been our government's #1 priority over the last 3 years, helping with the cost of living. Under Labor, every household and small business will receive another round of energy bill relief, another $150 off your power bill. And all 14 million taxpayers will get not one but 2 more tax cuts next year and the year after. Not as a one and done, not something that disappears next July to be replaced by a permanent hike in income tax. We will lower tax rates for every taxpayer permanently, with our top-up tax cuts delivering an average benefit of $2,500. We're cutting taxes, but we're also boosting wages, helping people earn more and keep more of what they earn. Because we know that managing the cost of living, making the family budget work, is about the money that comes in as well. Our plan is for every part of our country and for every generation. And that is why we will cut 20% of student debt, saving 3 million Australians an average of $5,500 each. And we've made the system better and fairer for the future, because we don't want to see student debt grow faster than wages ever again. Our government is building more homes, including 100,000 new homes reserved for first home buyers. And we will make it possible for people to buy their first home with just a 5% deposit, cutting years off the time it takes to save for a deposit, so that instead of watching house prices rise while your rent is paying off someone else's mortgage, you're actually paying off your own home. This reform to empower a new generation of home ownership was at the centre of our campaign launch in Perth, along with, of course, our $1,000 instant tax deduction, something that will mean nearly 6 million Australians, young people, people working from home, people who can't afford an accountant, get more of their own money back at tax time. Again, permanent reform. But so much else in our plan to make people better off over the next 3 years was presented to Australians before this election campaign even began. Our top-up tax cuts were part of the new cost of living relief that the Treasurer Jim Chalmers delivered in his 4th budget in March. And they build on the tax cuts for every taxpayer that I announced right here at the National Press Club in January of last year. We announced our historic new investment in Medicare and bulk billing in Launceston in February. And when I spoke here at the beginning of this year, my 10th address as the Labor leader, I announced our new $10,000 incentive for construction apprenticeships, helping train more tradies so we can build more homes. And I confirmed during that address that Victoria and South Australia had signed on to our Better and Fairer Schools funding agreement. Now, before the campaign began, we also secured agreement with the New South Wales Labor government, but the Queensland LNP government as well. And that means that under Labor, for the first time ever, every student in every state and territory, in every school, will get the funding and support they need to be their best. It was in Brisbane last December that I outlined our plan to build more childcare centres in regions and suburbs where they are needed most, and to abolish the Liberals' unfair activity test and replace it with our 3-day guarantee. The next steps to universal, affordable childcare that I first spoke about here when I was giving my vision statements as the leader of the opposition. We made our commitment to cut student debt by 20% and make free TAFE permanent nationwide in Adelaide in November last year. And our vision for a future made in Australia, using our global advantage in clean energy to power a new generation of jobs and industries in our regions and in our suburbs was at the centre of our budget last year. And of course, we're building on it with our critical minerals strategic reserve that I outlined in an address in Perth just last week. So our plans for Australia's future, for your future, have been public and they've been published and available for all to see for months, in some cases for years. Our agenda is concrete, comprehensive, and importantly, it's costed. Because in times of global economic uncertainty, that is the stable and responsible approach that our people deserve and our nation needs. At a time of global uncertainty, when so much in the world is unpredictable, Australians can be sure of where Labor stands and what Labor stands for. Australians can be very confident that we will always stand up for Australia, trusting our values and backing our people to build that future. And compare that with the alternative. There is a real choice before the Australian people this Saturday. The Liberals and Nationals have spent 3 years raging about problems that their decade in office created, with not a word to say about solutions. No proposals of their own, just militant opposition to our cost of living measures and mindless negativity. The Coalition have spent 3 years trying to make life harder for Australians because they thought it would make politics easier for them, talking Australia down to try to build themselves up. The Liberals have not changed and they have not learned. It is very clear to all that they have simply not done the work that you need to do if you are to present as a credible alternative government. Now, I can tell them this. The Australian people have worked hard in the face of unprecedented challenges, the worst global inflation since the 1980s, the biggest international energy crisis since the 1970s, conflict overseas and natural disasters at home. Australians have worked hard, and today underlines the real progress that we have made together. When we came to government less than 3 years ago, inflation was over 6% and it was rising. Today it's down to 2.4%. Real wages have grown 5 quarters in a row. Interest rates have started to come down, and more jobs have been created in the last 3 years than during any term of government since Federation. Because of the resilience of the Australian people, our economy is turning the corner, and our government is investing in the jobs, in Medicare, housing and education that will take us forward together, with no one held back and no one left behind. But the Liberals want to drag us back down their dead-end road, because all their contradictions and chaos and reversals, all their scrambling to pretend they didn't hear the question or really meant the opposite of the words that they themselves have said, that cuts printed in black and white don't exist. None of that can disguise the fact that their plans are fundamentally wrong for Australia. Just look at their proposal to ban working from home. Last month, Peter Dutton said that women who couldn't be in the office 5 days a week should just job share. His words, not mine. A statement that is so out of touch with the lives of modern families and the flexibility that working from home gives parents in particular. It also fundamentally misunderstands the national productivity benefit of supporting greater opportunity for women and the essential right of women to make their own choices about their own careers. Then he turns around and blames Labor for that policy being unpopular. His own shadow minister maintains that making everyone go to the office 5 days a week is the right idea, It's just the wrong time to talk about it. And that's the sentiment that drives their approach right across the board. On defence, on climate change, on their cuts to health and education, the Liberals cannot agree with themselves, and they are not ready or willing to level with the Australian people. The answer to every question boils down to, we'll tell you after the election. I can only assume that's why my opponent is not coming here this week, because he doesn't have faith in his plan and doesn't have faith in his team, because he doesn't want to share the facts about his agenda or what it will cost. Either that or the man who spends so much time telling everyone how tough it is, the person who put himself forward to lead the nation for the next 3 years, is unwilling to face up to the scrutiny of the National Press Club that I've done now 11 times as Labor leader. Instead, he prefers to accuse journos of being activists and labels our national broadcaster hate media. Outbursts that frankly say more about his temperament than anything else. For a leader, being here in the last week of the election campaign is more than a matter of respect for tradition. Standing here is about taking responsibility for your plans. Being here is about being accountable to the people, to the democratic process. And given that Peter Dutton is going to this election with a $600 billion nuclear reactor scheme that no state or territory government from either side of politics supports, that no commercial investor is willing to back, and that the private sector doesn't want to touch with a barge pole, he should have the guts to front up and explain where the money will come from to pay for it, before Australians cast their vote, not after. He should come clean on what he will cut to pay for his nuclear reactors, what it will mean for the communities he refuses to visit, let alone consult, how he can justify the sunniest continent on Earth moving away from solar power and the driest continent on Earth investing in the form of energy which uses the most water, and what the consequences will be for jobs and industries and agriculture and manufacturing right around Australia if we turn our backs on the opportunities of renewable energy technology that over 4 million Australian households have embraced through rooftop solar energy that's tailor-made for Australia's sunlight and space, and instead push pause for 2 decades to risk it all on building the most expensive form of new energy from scratch, that their own figures say will result in an economy that is 40% smaller. Australians deserve an answer to those questions before they vote. And what's more, if your other big idea is to sack 41,000 Australians, then you owe it to Australians to explain what the consequences of those cuts will be for the services and support and pensions that people rely on, for the disaster recovery payments that communities need to rebuild, for the entitlements that our veterans earn in their service to our nation, for the National Disability Insurance Scheme and everything it means to people. It beggars belief that someone seeking to be Prime Minister of Australia could propose such a risky and extreme set of policies, and yet, after 3 years, an unprecedented 4 debates and 5 weeks of campaigning, still refuse to explain what those policies will mean to you. My message to Australians is this: if Peter Dutton wants you to take a risk on him, then he should look you in the eye. He should tell you what he will cut and what you will pay. In Australia, we sometimes think of ourselves as a young nation. But not only do we have the privilege of being home to the world's oldest continuous culture, Australia is also one of the world's oldest and strongest democracies. Every election affirms the right and the responsibility of every citizen to choose the future that they want for our nation. And at this election, the choice for Australians is more important and more clear than ever before, because the choice that you make on the 3rd of May is not between two competing plans that strive for the same goal. It's not two sides of the same coin. This election is a choice between two fundamentally different visions for the direction that Australia should go. In the total absence of anything constructive to help in the present or anything positive to say about the future, the Liberals are urging Australians to go back to the past, back to a darker and nastier and more extreme version of the cuts and conflict and culture wars that people rejected less than 3 years ago. The government I lead is determined to take Australia forward. I've always been optimistic about Australia's future, and never more so than now, because of the challenges we have worked together to overcome, because of the opportunities we can work together to seize, and because the very best reason to be optimistic about Australia's future remains our people. And the best investment we can make in Australia's future is in our people, in you. Your courage, your resilience, your capacity, your talents and aspiration. That's a truth Labor governments have always understood. It is at the heart of every great and enduring Labor reform. And it is why, in uncertain times, every Australian can be certain of this. A vote for Labor means the certainty of Medicare, the security of being able to see a GP when and where you need it without worrying about whether you can afford it. A vote for Labor means you can be certain that childcare and early education will be more affordable for your family. You can be certain that your child and their school will get the full and fair funding they need to be their very best, public and private. You can be certain that the opportunity of free TAFE is here to stay. You can be certain that your student debt will be cut by 20%. A vote for Labor means you can be certain of a government that has your back at work, that stands for good jobs, real wage rises, the flexibility to work from home and your right to disconnect at the end of the day. A vote for Labor means you can be certain of a government building more homes and providing more help for you to buy your first home. And in an uncertain world, a vote for Labor means you can be certain of a government that will stand up for Australia, not copy from overseas. A government that will build our national security and our economic sovereignty by investing in our capabilities and our relationships in our national interest, by strengthening our Defence Force, taking action on climate change, engaging with the transformative opportunities of our region, and making more things right here in Australia. My fellow Australians, serving as your Prime Minister is the greatest honour of my life, because every day is a chance to make a positive difference to your lives. It offers the extraordinary opportunity to make this, the best nation on earth, even better. And if my colleagues and I earn your support on the 3rd of May, we will dedicate every single day of the next 3 years to proving ourselves worthy of it, securing the progress that we have made together, delivering the rewards that your hard work has won, creating the opportunities you and your children deserve, building an economy that is as resilient and innovative as our people, building a society that is as generous and fair as Australians are themselves, building a future where we draw on the talents and invest in the aspirations of all of our citizens, building a nation where no one is held back and no one is left behind. Building Australia's future together. I thank you.